Hello everybody, happy Friday. Damp Sam here from All Dry Damp Proofing, and today I'm going to share with you some abbreviations that's commonly used in the damp proofing industry or remedial work industry. If you get any damp quotes, things like that, you might not know what these abbreviations are. For us that work in this industry, they're quite self-explanatory because we use them day to day, but for the everyday person, you might not know what it is. So I'm going to try and explain some abbreviations. I think I've got 8 for you. So at number 1, or shall I go to the, no, I'll go, all right, number 1, we've got DPC, which is damp proof course. Nearly said damp proof course. And your damp proof course with regards to remedial work comes in 2 types. You get a physical damp proof course, which nowadays is incorporated in the build. So it comes in the form of a black plastic sheet roll that's about 3 or 4 courses up. Building regs says it ought to be 100, and your damp proof course has to be a minimum of 150 millimeters from external ground level. So nip out with tape measure, and if it's not, give us a ring. So all right, so that's your physical damp proof course, and what we tend to install is a retrofit chemical damp proof course, and there can be a number of reasons why we fit them. So if the property is older than 100 years old, then a lot of times it's probably not got one in, and for various reasons might need one. And other times, if you've had one fitted in 80s, which were a silicone one, it might be breaking down if it's over 20-30 years old, and you might need a new one in. So there's different reasons, and that's why we recommend a survey. So that's DPC, damp proof course. Number 2 is DPM. So I'm going to let you have a guess at that. No, it's not that. But it is, in fact, damp proof membrane. So a damp proof membrane tends to go under a floor. So if you're having a concrete slab put down, you'd have a plastic sheet put under the floor, and in theory it stops groundwater coming up back through slab. I'm not going into all details about hydrostatic pressure and things like that, but a DPM is a damp proof membrane, so it'd be a full sort of plastic sheet that stops the transfer of moisture either from the ground upwards, or it could be other things like windowsills and things like that, or window trays, things like that. So it's a plastic sheet. You can have varying thicknesses of gauge, and that's your DPM, damp proof membrane. Number 3 is SBR, Sebera, in case you can't understand my Yorkshire accent, and that is let's see if I can think of it, styrene butadiene rubber. So it's a chemical glue type thing that's used in building industry. It's rubber based, and it's a fantastic product if you're using rendering and things like that. Unlike its sister, which I'm going to come to next, which is another abbreviation, but a polymodified plastic version, it is not water based, so it'll not return to its original water form once it is in contact with a moisture source. So I like to use SPR on a lot of waterproofing jobs for various reasons. If you put in a render, it makes you stronger, but you have to be careful about amounts that you use. But it's a brilliant product, and a bit better than its sister, which I'm going to come to next, which is number 4, which is PVA, and that's polyvinyl acetate, to give its full name. And polyvinyl acetate, PVA, is used by a lot of plasterers, and is a great product unless it's in a damp environment. A little story for you. When I was a plasterer growing up in 80s and 90s, before I did all my learning and acquired all my knowledge, or some of my knowledge, we used to put PVA on over Artex ceilings once it's been scraped down, and that would be for health and safety before we got tested it. So yeah, so you'd put PVA onto your ceiling, different thicknesses and things like that, let it set until it come tacky, and then skim over it, and that acted like a glue. And on different occasions, or rare occasions, sometimes the customer would phone up and say it's fallen off, and we used to put it down to PVA being left on back in winter, and then icing up, and it's sort of killing mechanisms that it is. Since doing my exams and my research, what I found is, because it tended to be in kitchens and bathrooms when it used to blow, what we used to call blow, so then it would shell away from its surface. But what happens is, plasterers, is that if you put PVA on a kitchen or a bathroom, if the bathroom and kitchen is not vented correctly, then water vapour as a gas goes through the fabric of the building, so it'll go through plasterboards. But when it hits the PVA, it can sort of turn back to its water form, and then it can sort of it can turn back from a glue, so it stops it gluing, and basically then you start getting air behind it and it blows it even more. So that was the issue with PVA. Basically, just be careful what you're doing with it. It's a great product. You put it on walls and everything, and I should say 90% of the time you don't have any issues. But be aware that if you're going to use it in a damp environment, which is a bathroom and a kitchen, and they've not vented it properly, so they've not got an extractor fan that's vented externally, cooker hood that's vented externally, or an extractor fan in the bathroom, then just you might just be aware you might be getting a phone call saying it's dropped off. Another thing we used to think it was, well, if there were smokers, we used to think it was nicotine that had reacted with PVA, because when you used to put PVA on a ceiling, you'd see it drips and there'd be like a yellow colour. So, but it's not that anyway. It's moisture. So that's PVA. Number 4, I think it was. Number 5 is PCA, and that's the Property Care Association. The Property Care Association is the I like to say governing body. It's an association that that most damp proofers, surveyors, manufacturers, we're all members, and we all adhere to their code of conduct, and we're accountable to them. So we can get kicked out if we do a bad job, or if we're not sort of doing it by their standards. They run courses, they provide learning, they sort of they do courses for the tradesmen, There are courses for ventilation, anything to do with with the remedial work and structural waterproofing, and Japanese knotweed now. So they've sort of invasive. I'm saying Japanese one, invasive weed, which is affecting waterways in England. So PCA governing what I call governing body, and all CNI really. So that's the PCA, Property Care Association, and you might see that a lot of time if you're buying a property, and you have a home buyers survey, and it says that you need to have a survey done by a specialist to satisfy your bank's valuation. If the home buyer's valuer has found some damp or his meter's gone off, so he'll tell you that you need to get a specialist to have a look at it and tell you what it is and how much it's going to be to rectify it, and they'll probably put a retention on it. So that's the PCA. The next is CSRT, which is a abbreviation of Certificated Surveyor in Remedial Treatments, and that's a qualification that you can get by taking your exams with the PCA, Property Care Association. And if you wanting to expand your knowledge and be accredited, then go and take your exams. And if you're a damp surveyor, and you've not got that this accreditation, why? You know what I mean? If you've got the knowledge, if you're doing it day in and day out, it'll be a piece of piss to do it. So pay a bit of money, invest in yourself, get your qualification, and you might learn something as well. But if you've been doing it for a long time, and there's quite a few of you out there that know who you are, just go and do your qualification. You know, get accredited. What are you scared of? You're scared of failing. I failed my first exam. I took it, and I was prepared to take it 10 times. So that's one of the things that I were in for a long run. And this is a little story about when I did my timber identification. I'd failed my first one, so I booked straight in for doing it again, because I was just unfamiliar with doing exams, and it was the first time I'd gone back in a classroom. Didn't know what to expect. So second time, I made sure I revised, but the timber identification for somebody who was a plasterer was, you know, a bit out of my comfort zone. Even though I'd got all bits of wood and I got all funguses, and I'd been going over and over again. So I did. I went into exam, which is a 20-minute exam, and went through, and I marked down all ones that what I thought it was, and I was last person out. Everybody else had done in like sort of 10 minutes, an hour there. And I think they gave me an extra 30 seconds or so, and I'm grateful for it. And you know who you are, who did it. But and as I was coming out, I said to her, and I goes, I don't think I've passed. Can you book me in for next exam? And she says, oh, I think you'll be all right. You know, you should be okay and all. Anyway, I was fretting a bit, and I'd got to go into another exam that afternoon. So while I was sat down for my other exam after I'd had my dinner, one of the nice people came over and said, give me a wink and said, "You've passed. You'll be okay. You've passed." They must have checked my paper just to put my mind at rest, just so I didn't have to book another thing. So I knew I'd passed that exam anyway. So that was good. So that's CSRT. The second on my list, not second, number 7 or 8 or whatever it is CSSW, which is Certificated Surveyor in Structural Waterproofing. Now this is if you are doing basement conversions, if you're doing if you're a builder and you're doing new builds and you're building them into the side of a house, or you're building them with a basement, as part of BS 8102, which is the British standard for below ground structures, you have to have someone with this qualification as part of the design team when you're designing the basement, to give advice and to sit in and have some input. And a lot of basements that we go in don't come up to the standard to BS 8102. And if someone were to take you to court, BS 8102 is just a guide, but if you got took to court for some reason, if there were a dispute over the waterproofing in a building, then the judge, not being an expert in everything, what he'll do is he'll read through BS 8102 and he'll make his decision based on what's wrote in BS 8102. And they'll take all your information, they'll take your original quotes, plans and everything, and he'll have experts that come in who know BS 8102 inside out, and they'll put their case, but he'll be able to cross-reference with that document. And the same with any British standard document. That's what they're there for, because they set a standard, but they're only used as a guide, but tend to be used as a guide once it's a court case. So just be aware that one of the conditions of BS 8102 is that somebody with that qualification has to sit in at design stage. And and I've been asked to do quite a few basements, and once I've been sent plans through, I've looked at them and they just don't comply. So I stay well clear, and probably cost myself a bit of money, but if I'm not comfortable with it, I'll not do it. I had one last year, and it basically got asked to sign some basements off, 8 basements, and we set about to do it, and I did a lot of groundwork, went in and had a look round and made recommendations. Had a look at the plans, said, oh, this needs doing, that needs doing. But I weren't comfortable with the fact that there were a couple of things I weren't comfortable with. And when we sort of pushed the builder on it, he sort of went and looked for somebody who were a bit more compliant, so to speak, to sign it off. And this is a loophole that that's going to get closed soon. You're not going to be able to sign anybody else's jobs off via for insurance purposes, and I think it's going to happen soon. And then I think there might be a lot more people taking this qualification. So that's CSSW, Structural Surveyor, Certificated Surveyor in Structural Waterproofing. And the last but not least one that I'm going to tell you today is CDM, and that's Cavity Drainage Membrane. And cavity drainage membrane is used in retrofit waterproofing. It's used in damp proofing nowadays, and it's a damp proof membrane, but it's designed as a cavity drain. So it's a plastic membrane that's got little dimples on, and the size of the dimples can vary from 3 mil. In fact, it might be even less than 3 mil. It might be 2 mil, but 3 mil up to 25 mil for floors. And when you do a retrofit basement, cavity drainage membrane goes on the floor, walls, and then it's sealed with sealable tape. And the idea of a cavity drainage membrane is you fix it to wall with sealable plugs, and the dimple creates a small cavity for which air can flow across it. And if you've got like water evaporating out of the wall that's just an ingress, then this can be evaporated with the air that flows across the cavity, and that's the idea of cavity drainage membrane. If it's hydrostatic water, it'll allow that water to come into a building, into a cellar, and it'll manage it because she'll have put a drainage system in. So it'll allow that water to flow into the building, into the drain, into the sump, and then pumped away. So the cavity drainage membrane, brilliant piece of kit. Before that, you had because that's classed as a type C system for a basement under BS 8102, and before that you had type A systems, which were cementitious polymodified slurries, and they sort of held the water back rather than allowing the water to come into a basement and managing how it comes in. The type A system held it back, which creates problems upon itself with pressure, and that's when you gain into hydrostatic pressure and things like that. And you can do dual systems and things like that, but CDM, cavity drainage membrane. So if anybody's still watching after all these abbreviations, then thank you for staying well end, and I hope it's been of some help to you, and you've got some information, and it's been you've got some value out of it. So that's Simon signing off on a Friday, and subscribe if you can, and if you've got any questions, email me dampsam@alldrydampproofing.com. Hope you're enjoying the videos, and hope it's not been too long for you. So bye bye.